Yeah, we're live. Perfect. Thanks everyone, and thanks for your patience. We got some mic troubles, but it seems to be over now, so everything's all right.
Cheers.
Welcome to the Responsible AI in Healthcare panel. As a bit of context, we'll play a video on the customer story that Northumbria NHS created to treat patients in orthopedic surgery. After that, we'll hear from Dr. Jutsin Green, who's one of the surgeons who was key for this project to become alive, and then we'll transition into the panel. So, Abdul, if you can help us with video number 1, please.
How did I become a surgeon?
It's fine then.
My greatest responsibility is that of my patients. They're at the heart of everything.
Surgery is a significant decision. Previously, when we have a conversation with a patient, we would discuss the risks that they've really haven't been able to be personalised enough.
Predicting the risk of surgery is a really complicated process, and surgery is irreversible. So we need to make sure that we're operating on the right people for the right reasons, using machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand risk of surgery is just right at the very forefront of technological change. And the responsible AI is absolutely key.
And the beauty of this system is that we can say what goes into that conclusion, and that helps the patients and the clinicians understand what is driving that particular risk. Currently, 220 different fields go into the model. Basic demographics, age, other aspects like social deprivation, the past medical history, blood tests.
The Responsible AI dashboard from Microsoft does help us have more meaningful conversations with the patients or a clinical team. Being able to offset those inherent biases, which we all have, is really important for the clinician because they can make a sound judgment and use the tools available to them to provide the best possible care to their patients.
Giving them a personalised view about what their particular risk is does empower people to be able to make decisions about their lives.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is really what we need to be doing with consent, is making it as personal as possible to them.
For patients, ultimately this is going to provide them the treatment they need so that they recover faster, they're able to do the things in life that they wanted to do, that are struggling because of a condition that we can do something about. Such a privilege to be involved in that.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting us to talk at Big Data London 2022. My name's Dr. Jutsin Green. I'm an orthopaedic surgeon and the clinical data science lead on the Open Predictor project from Northumbria Healthcare Trust in the northeast of England. It's a real privilege to have been invited here to talk to you today alongside our colleagues from Microsoft and share with you some of the work that we've been doing in using AI to help address the delays our patients are having in accessing surgery following the backlog for the last couple of years. I'm sure you'll all appreciate that vast medical data sets are affording us the opportunity to do extraordinary things with AI and machine learning. We can predict long-term outcomes from health conditions, identify diseases, personalized treatment, and improve operational efficiencies across the whole of the healthcare sector. This work is going to continue, indeed accelerate over the next years. And therefore, it's important that we approach this work fundamentally in an ethical, fair, and responsible manner to ensure that AI systems are safe to be used in healthcare. I'm sorry I can't be there to talk to you in person, but I'm going to hand over to my colleagues now to tell you about some of the work that we've done and how we've approached this problem. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for being here, Phil and Caio. Would you mind going with a quick intro so people in the audience know who you are?
Sure. So can you guys hear me? I think, yeah, all good. Sorry for the issues. So I'm Caio Moreno. I'm a senior cloud solution architect at Microsoft, which means I work with customers to design and help customers build solutions. So I was particularly working with NHS to build this amazing AI system to predict the risk of complications in surgery So my background is machine learning, also Azure in general, and big data and data science. So I really enjoy what I do because I have the opportunity to work with customers like NHS and innovate in all the things you guys are going to see. So I hope you guys like it. But I'm very passionate about this specific project.
Cool.
Phil.
Thanks, Caio. Hi, everyone. My name's Phil Jarratt. I'm an independent consultant, actually, but I've been working on the project at Northumbria NHS Foundation Trust for about a year now. My background is actually in business. This is my first public sector project, so I'm learning a lot on the job. Very interested, obviously, to be working on a healthcare-related AI project. My responsibilities on the project are manifold. I'm responsible for the regulatory affairs, so this will eventually, hopefully, be registered as a software as a medical device with the MHRA and the other governing bodies, so I'm responsible for that. I take care of information governance for my sins, which means making sure that we don't fall foul of data protection regulations. I'm also tasked with figuring out how we create a sustainable business model. We've really just got a grant-funded proof of concept at the moment. Ultimately, hopefully, obviously, we hope to cover all our costs and continue to drive the project forward self-funded. So I'm trying to figure out how to generate the revenue that does that. And when I'm not doing those things, I project manage everything.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And I'm Pablo Casaubon. I look after analytics and AI go-to-market in the UK at Microsoft. So we could talk about this topic for days and days, and the slot is limited, but we'll be at the stand if anyone's keen on engaging and having more in-depth conversations after the panel. We'll be there and happy to engage with all of you. So the first question we want to ask is always starting with why. Why was this objective? Why was this started, and what was the trigger for innovating in this project?
Yeah, sure. So I was interested to note actually that the Azure strapline on the Microsoft stand, correct me if I get it wrong, but it's a design with purpose, I think. And I think that's a good place to start. I always like innovative projects that start with a clearly defined problem to solve. There are a lot of vanity projects in artificial intelligence, I think, where people are mucking around with data, but they're not quite sure why. This is definitely not one of those. So we had a problem before the project started, which was to basically understand how could we do a better job of making individual predictions of a patient's risk before they go into surgery. And there are several reasons why that's really important, but I think, as you probably saw in the video, surgery is a very significant decision, as Professor Reed said. It's irreversible, so it's not something that you want to embark on lightly. And in the most case, and certainly it's best practice, it's a joint decision that's made with the patient. It's no longer the case where your doctor tells you what's going to happen to you and you go along with it. It's something that you discuss and you weigh up the pros and cons, the risk and benefit, and then make an informed decision as a patient. That's the ideal way that it's supposed to work. Now, unfortunately, a minority of patients, there is a risk, a minority of patients when they go for surgery, we're talking hip and knee replacements mainly, will have some sort of a problem, and some of those problems are dangerous, and some of them are even potentially life-changing. It's relatively few. There are fewer than 1 in 20 that have a problem, and much fewer than that have a really serious problem. But nevertheless, you can clearly see, therefore, how important it is to be able to make as accurate a prediction as possible when you're sitting having that conversation with a patient as to what their risks of some sort of problem are, because then they need to weigh that up against the much easier to predict benefits of the new joint to decide, well, do you want to go ahead or not? And then, having made the decision to go to surgery, there are also choices about the procedure itself and where it's conducted and when. So quite a lot rests on this risk prediction. We did a study and we found that, unfortunately, we're not as good at predicting these risks as we would like. We did a retrospective study of historic procedures in elective surgery, orthopedic elective surgery within Northumbria, and we found that very often, actually, the risky patients were not being picked up, and on other occasions, plenty of occasions actually, people were being suspected of being risky and then actually went on to have risk-free procedures. So it became apparent there'd be a very big benefit to both patients and to the service if we could do a better job of predicting what those risks were now, and how great they are, importantly. So we're sitting, or have been sitting for a long time, on a really good data set in Northumbria. The Trust has been excellent at recording that data and more recently digitizing it, and now with the advent of modern machine learning techniques, there becomes the opportunity to really unleash the power of that data for public good. And that's what this project's about, really.
Brilliant, brilliant. And once you have the mission and the why, how did you take the idea to reality in terms of people, processes, tools? But I'd like if you could deep dive on the people process, because we've seen that data strategy and any project really, technology is there to enable, but the most important factor is people having their buy-in and actually having everyone together towards the same goal. So could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So when we started together as a team, Microsoft team, NHS team, we decide, okay, we need to have a strategy, like an AI strategy. How do we start that? And then who do we have in the team? Okay, do we have data engineers? Do we have data science? Do we have a domain expert? And I think one thing that was amazing about, and is still amazing about this project, is we have someone that actually operates people, and then just who is not here, unfortunately, but he understands all the data and all the procedures. So, hello. So we define a team. So we define, okay, what are the tools as well we're gonna use? Are we proficient on those tools? Do we know Azure? Do we know Azure ML? In this case we're using Azure Machine Learning, and we're trying to define a roadmap and also the skills that we have in the team, the skills, and also the people we have to hire, and define a strategy. Of course, this is a long project. We're not going to do this in 1 week. We're going to need to have some phases and phase out. So talking about reality and what we did, we defined in some space. So first, okay, let's do MVP with the data that we have. Let's see how far we can go. And after we've done this MVP, we prove, okay, the architecture is right. It does. We're able to work in this use case. Now, can we improve the model? After we improve the model, we say, okay, can we make this model responsible? Can we use our responsible tools and see if this is actually something you could deploy? And then, of course, expand this. So we can go very deep on that. I think I'm going to stop now and leave this to my other colleagues. But it's a very exciting project, and turning this to a vision, to reality, it was long time, and like almost 2 years now, and then we're still in this journey, and there are a lot of things we can improve.
Brilliant. And speaking about the ethical approach, there's many angles towards we could shepherd the conversation, but I'd like to start with diversity in data, how the algorithm represents the population. Also, could you speak a bit about bias and what you did to mitigate it, and what were your discoveries across the project?
Shall I?
Yeah, can go.
Yeah, I mean, bias is or the potential for bias is a huge topic, and I mean, it's a huge topic in AI in general, but I mean, there isn't a more stringent use case probably than healthcare for making sure that that bias is understood and to as great an extent as possible mitigated. I think one of the things that we quickly became aware of was that there was already bias inherent in the data and the processes that were already in place before we tried to automate it. So that was an important learning for us, because I think if we hadn't have made that discovery, we might have codified an already broken system and made it worse. it exaggerated the bias that was already in there. So by doing analysis on the existing data set and understanding what the profile of the patients versus the profile of the total patient cohort in the region was, we understood that already the system was somehow biased, for example, away from people who were of low demographic groups. So socially deprived areas basically were not being operated on as much as, let's say, middle class people, which we found bizarre and a surprise. And we could go into why that might be, and indeed we did go into why that might be. Are our consultants massively prejudiced against people from certain postcodes? No, I don't think they are. But it does point to some different issues that might be in there with regards to, let's say, patient access, or maybe even just awareness amongst those demographics of what treatment is available. The fact that, if you've got a sore leg and you can't walk properly, there's something for that, and you should consult your doctor because he may be able to recommend you for some sort of surgery or whatever, and maybe awareness and access to those treatments is not as high amongst that demographic group. So it's just an example of the type of bias that could be already existing in the system that you don't want to replicate and exaggerate through machine learning.
Great. And I think one of the biggest things that you have to keep in mind in any responsible ethical approach to AI ML is transparency, not having a black box algorithm that just spits out a recommendation. Can you speak about how you made that, both in terms of the algorithm, but also how you kept the relationship with the clinician and the patient ultimately being the decision maker on what was the outcome at the end?
Yeah. Me again? Okay. That's a massive question. We identified what I call my golden rules for the project of ethical and responsible use of AI, and I'll run through some of those. Clearly, there are some pretty much no-brainers, like remaining on the right side of the law as regards Data Protection Act and so on. But transparency you mentioned. So one of our rules is that any patient, which will hopefully be most when it's into full use, where it is proposed to use the risk prediction tool to help guide the clinician and the patient towards the eventual procedure and outcome, you must make the patient aware of that intention. And so there's a whole little education piece to be done there around educating both the clinician and then the patient on, well, what is a machine learning algorithm, how do you use my data, and how will the outcome of that analysis be used. It's essential to do that, and then crucially give the patient the option to opt out. So if for whatever reason, having heard the rationale and the science behind it, is saying, look, no, I don't want a computer involved in my diagnosis, thank you, you've got to give them the right to opt out of that. I think that's absolutely essential. Another golden rule is human agency. So we want to avoid what is often a myth, I think, that, in a few years' time, every big decision will be made by an algorithm and people won't have any say in the matter. That's a scary dystopian view that we want to make sure is people are not laboring under that misconception. So it's another absolute golden rule that the algorithm and its product, its prediction, is used as a clinical decision aid by a clinician. So ultimately the clinician is always the decision maker in conjunction with the patient. It's never the algorithm making an automated decision. That's not the intended use case here. And then finally, but maybe the most sacrosanct one, no one will ever be denied treatment because of what the algorithm said. That must never be the case. So it might inform a decision that you don't want to go ahead with a surgery, but it will never preclude it.
Brilliant.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add there, Caio?
Yeah, no, that's excellent, and there's not much to add. I mean, I think one thing, when we were actually working with the data, maybe all of us, we got very new insights, because we started testing and doing experimentations, and we first started with not black box algorithms, so more like decision trees and simple things, and to get feature importance and see, okay, I think my mic is, so what are the features that are helping with the prediction? So, and of course the data need a lot of cleaning, so it was a big process. I think data science that you you have to spend a lot of time actually understanding clinical data. So yeah, the model was a big reflection of what we have as the data, and then we add new things, as I said, for example, deprivation, something that was not in the clinical records, but another consulting from NHS, he said, why if you don't add the deprivation index and see, okay, maybe people in an area that has more deprivation will have more potential to recover well, and yeah, in fact, it has a correlation. So I think it's such a very amazing data set that you can spend hours and days and weeks just playing and making experiments and getting insights.
That's what you do, isn't it?
Not just me, there are like other people in the team, like many. I mean, this project, to be honest, like many people got involved. So we had people from the responsible AI team in the US, people from the data science team in the US, and also data science from the NHS, and yeah, and a lot of people got involved.
Perfect. So it seems like we're facing the end of the slot. I would like to ask a question on if there's anything that you'd like to share with the audience and learnings, or any assumption that changed whilst you were at this project.
Maybe you can start. I can say something because
so I mean, really quite basic for me, really, I think. But I observe when I look back at how we embarked on the project that all of the energy and the time and the effort was going into the machine learning part of it. And you know, you can understand that it's an exciting machine learning project. We've got Microsoft on board helping us. We're all very excited about that. But actually, at the end of the day, the NHS is a people business. And so there are some really important steps that you have to perform, and some of them take a long time in a large and complex organization like the NHS. So I'm thinking things like stakeholder management. There are so many people out there in the organization who have an important say in whether the project will ultimately proceed and succeed or not, be adopted or not, and you've got to take those people on the journey with you. So I would, if I had the time again, I would invest more time earlier in that stakeholder management journey to bring people along, because it's so much easier if they've been involved from the start than if you try to drag them kicking and screaming into something that they've never heard of when you're already halfway down the road. So that would be mine, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, my mic is... Oh, hello? So, oh, sorry, it's not... So, hello? Or maybe I'll stop.
But don't mind.
No, that's fine. So, one thing for me is... Oh, I'm going to use this mic. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so one thing for me is how excited working with healthcare as a data science can be. So, and something that looks small can become very big. So, because when you think about all the things you need to do about data collection, data storing, even to store clinical data, it's not something simple. You need to think about many things. And then how you process, and then when you actually want to put them all into production, for example, we didn't discuss here, but things like machine learning ops, how we do the MLOps, how do we make sure this model is actually responsible? So there are many things that we need to consider, and then maybe in other industry it's a little bit simpler compared to healthcare. So, but definitely it's a very amazing journey, because you think that maybe one day I can, let's say, get a surgery. So you think like, okay, I'm making an impact in society.
Yeah, brilliant. Caio, Phil, thanks so much for being here in the panel. And as we said, we had a bit less time for the panel than what we were expecting, but we'll be at the stand there. If you want to have, a follow-up conversation, if you want to know more about how Microsoft can enable you to have an ethical approach, you could go to aka.ms/RAI, as in responsible AI. And thanks all for your time, and it's been great being here. So thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.